Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Americans and world citizens. Thank you so much for joining us once again at the We Are J6 live stream. And we are very excited, as always, to have everybody here. Thank you for bearing with us. We're starting a couple minutes late, just dealing with the inevitable tech issues. But we have a really awesome group joining us today. And as always, we're going to get started as I welcome them all here onto the stage. We're going to get started first with a prayer, just to acknowledge the presence of Almighty God and to humbly ask for His blessing and assistance on this group, on this effort, and on our country. So, with that, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we are truly humbled and grateful that we can come to you. Where two or three are gathered in your name, you promise us in your word that you will be there with us. So we believe that and we claim that right now. We claim the promise of one nation under God. That's our promise to each other and to you. And it's really the fundamental promise and opportunity, really, that we have for true success and true prosperity, and the only way to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is with that understanding that God, that all of our rights, all of our blessings, all of our opportunities, they exist because of you. So we acknowledge that. God, we also acknowledge that in the context of the J6 issue and various other things that that are weighing on our hearts and that we gather together to talk about and plan for and work together on, related to our families, our country, and our culture, we recognize that your blessing and your providence are absolutely necessary to guiding us in the right direction. So we ask you, God, to fill us with wisdom. We also recognize that there are those who are hurting very, very badly right now, particularly with the J6 issue. People that have lost everything they have in their physical lives. They're struggling emotionally and psychologically. There's a lot of pain and trauma, even death. It's a very serious thing, and we recognize that. So we just ask for your mercy, God, and blessing on those who are hurting. And again, we ask for wisdom and for your power to fill us, for your Holy Spirit to speak through us as we engage in this effort to pursue restorative justice, to pursue healing for those people and for the nation, and to continue to advance the cause of Western civilization and classical American values that we hold dear and that we know you have given to us as a blessing to pursue. So we thank you for all these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you so much again for being here. We just want to welcome Jim Hoft with the Gateway Pundit for joining us and streaming the broadcast with us today. Thank you so much, Jim. We also want to thank Insurrection Barbie for joining us today, incognito as she does. Really pretty special opportunity to have her support today. Barbie has been, as many of you probably know, she's done very well in establishing a great network of influence for simply truth-telling and common sense analysis of what's going on in the world. But even that didn't necessarily mean that she needed to tangle with J6 or get involved in this issue. As those of us in the J6 community know all too well, it's been a very controversial issue, to say the least, and a lot of people have simply avoided it for a variety of reasons. But Barbie has not done that. She's engaged and supported fearlessly, and we're really, really grateful for that. So thank you for being here today. We're also excited to have Jesse, who is a J6er, join us to share a little bit about his personal story. And we should also be joined shortly by Jenny Cudd of the J6 Road Home Project, which we're very excited to get an update on. Just for an overview, briefly at the top, in case it's your first time joining us, we recognize that certainly, hopefully, a lot of you folks are continuing to return every Saturday and support the effort. But a big part of the effort is expanding awareness and growing the family, which we'll talk about. So we imagine that there are newcomers today. So just to set the table for us, We Are J6 is simply a First Amendment free speech association of Americans and even people around the world who are simply committed to the cause of human liberty and justice. And of course, specifically, we are gathering to discuss, strategize, develop, and pursue and execute our resolve to deliver restorative justice. So we continue to talk about what exactly that means and everything involved in that. It's a big subject, it's a big topic. Initially, we gathered specifically with some ideas and efforts to coordinate legal strategies related to the idea of very necessary financial repair for J6 former defendants, now exonerated J6 patriots, as we love to call them, because that's what they are. But they are wounded patriots, very much so, to a degree that most of the country does not understand, even those who are supportive of whatever you want to call this side of the political spectrum, conservatives, etc. But even those who are conservative or supporting conservative values and families and people, the reality of what has happened to in the course of events with the J6 incident and the fallout from it is still largely not clearly understood. And so a huge part of the mission of We Are J6 is to develop a platform to help people share their stories and help people coordinate together in completely, fully investigating and exposing the truth of what happened, helping educate the public about who J6ers are as people, Americans, as citizens, and the very tragic reality of the incredible pain and damage and devastation that they have experienced. So that's one thing that we work on, and Dr. Gold, who's also an attorney, will have an update for us on the legal aspect. Also, Jim will certainly speak to that. The Gateway Pundit just put out a great piece about those efforts. And then along with the legal, really a huge component of what needs to happen in the pursuit of restorative justice is education and informing the public, as we mentioned, of these various things. So we are developing some different ways to do that. A very special one is the persecution testimonials, really cool video concept to help people share their stories. So I'm excited to let the audience know that we have a brand new persecution testimonial that we will demo for you today. And of course, the hope is to encourage all of you who are a J6 patriot, an exonerated former defendant, or if you know somebody who is, to encourage them to create these materials. We have emails that we send out explaining exactly how to do it, making it really easy for you. So this is my time to remember everyone, please register at wearej6.com. Do it again. Just continue to do that and encourage everyone you can to do that. There's a link if you're a former defendant, and there's a link if you are an advocate. And we'll get those instructions to you so you can create those materials. But the video is quite impactful, so I think you'll be excited by that. So with that, Dr. Gold, would you like to give us kind of an overview or update in terms of the legal considerations?
Yes, thank you. I'll just talk for just a few minutes, and I will say something very similar towards the end for anybody who's missed it or you need to hear it a couple of times.
Perfect.
Yeah, because it is big news. It is really the similar, same, maybe a little bit further than what I said last week. We are very happy. Let me always start with, when I use the word we, I'm talking about John Strand, myself, Derek Evans, and Brandon Struck, and anybody else who would like to do the similar actions that we're doing. We don't make decisions for any other people. People are sentient. They make their own decisions for themselves. We just want people to have, we want the whole J6 community to have the benefit of our research and what we've done and what we've looked into. These are the decisions we've made for ourselves, and we encourage, therefore, everybody to make a similar decision. As an attorney and as a person who's been massively targeted by the government, we've all been targeted, but I had a little bit of extra special legal efforts thrown my way. I've gone up against more government agencies than you can imagine, even more than most people in this group. So I have a lot of experience with talking with lawyers and figuring out legal strategy. And for myself and for my other J6 people in this group, I've selected Peter Tickton, Mark McCloskey, and that attorney group. It's not just the two of them, but they are the lead attorneys. I could not be happier for a number of reasons, just to review, because it's worth repeating. One of the criteria I was looking for in selecting the lawyer for myself is somebody who has worked for a long time with the administration. Now, administrations come and go, but the current administration is why we're pursuing this. We want to right the ship. And thankfully, we have a president who understands that. And therefore, I was looking for attorneys who had worked with people in this administration. Peter Tickton was one of those attorneys I spoke with, and I was very impressed with him. He has worked with and known Trump, I believe it's since his college days or even his high school days.
Military Academy of New York.
And thank you so much, John. And they have known each other obviously for many, many decades. If somebody could mute themselves, I'm not sure what I'm hearing. And I know that Trump has hired Peter Tickton for many, many lawsuits. That's public record. And he's also worked with and informed President Trump on J6 issues specifically. That's an incredible asset, that this is the person that Trump has turned to for Trump's own understanding of the issue. So, and my assessment of him is that he's a very fine character and also a very capable attorney. Mark McCloskey is better known to most of us initially as him and his wife standing on their front lawn in St. Louis as BLM was coming through their town and they were defending their property. I think we all saw that on television. It was horrifying, absolutely horrifying. Well, it turns out that he's a class action litigator. So they got together, and there's a few other attorneys who at this time aren't, not really discussing publicly. Part of that group, they are very mission aligned. They see the world exactly as exactly as we see it. And my apologies, everybody, exactly as we see it. And therefore, there isn't going to be any education necessary of these attorneys. There's not going to be any coaxing them to kind of do the things that we know are right. Our goals as J6 defendants are to partially correct the injustices that we personally have endured for 4 years, but also to correct the national narrative. We cannot move forward as a nation on a foundation built on lies. Everybody knows the lies, but if you build on lies, you're just going to collapse eventually. If not now, later. I don't know the truth, for example, on the JFK assassination, but I do know that it's deviled this country for my entire lifetime. Right? We don't need that. We don't need 50 years from now, children and grandchildren are wondering what happened on J6, what really happened. We don't need that. We need to pull the Band-Aid off. We need to look at it. We need to examine it. We need to have the truth. And I personally wanted lawyers who I didn't have to twist their arm to get there, that it's not just me as a client or John as a client or Derek or Brandon as a client, but the nation is also has a lot to heal from. So I'm sharing with you that Peter Tickton, Mark McCloskey, and that group are the people that we're selecting, and we strongly recommend everyone do the same. If we want to let you know that we'll send you an email this week within the next few days, John, I think.
Yep.
And then the attorneys will send you an email. You're under no obligation to do anything. You can read it or not read it. We always want to emphasize we've had so much power taken from us that we're not telling you what to do. We are giving you that opportunity to benefit from the research that we've done. And I've signed up with them. We've signed up with them. Please do that. And then we'll talk a little bit later about the communications. I've talked enough.
Oh, that was great, Dr. Gold. Thank you so much for the update. Like she said, yeah, we will continue to inform you guys. We wanted to just continue to urge everyone that's listening and participating right now to help spread this message and invite every other J6 patriot that you can, and anyone willing to be an advocate for this cause, that you can have them register at wearej6.com. We are not raising money or asking for donations at We Are J6. This is just a free speech association to kind of bridge all the gaps and build bridges amongst the community and various J6ers and also groups and advocacy efforts. So we want to kind of help coordinate, collect, and support all of those folks and efforts together. Certainly as it relates to the legal, like Dr. Gold mentioned, we're really excited about the Tickton McCloskey attorney group and believe fully in their efforts. So we're going to be continuing to support them and inviting anyone interested in wanting to participate in this to join We Are J6 at wearej6.com, and we'll connect you with those attorneys. Barbie, you've been monitoring the J6 issue along with a lot of other issues that connect to it. So, in the midst of the judicial coup situation that's going on right now, and just various other legal wranglings, I would just love to hear kind of your thoughts and perspective on where J6, like where we are right now, in relation to not only efforts to deal with attorneys, but also to communicate the truth of what this is all about with the people and with the people's representatives in Congress and government officials, so that the climate is correct and that we're moving in the right direction on things. Let's see if we have her.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm trying to unmic. It's so hard to unmic this. I'm not
problem.
sure if that was me because I didn't hear the first part of what you said. It cut out, sadly.
I cut out. So
yeah, for me.
Basically just wanted to hear your thoughts on J6 issues generally, but specifically on Dr. Gould's update on the Tickton-McCloskey attorney group and the efforts we've been engaged in to coordinate J6ers with a winning strategy that will help us to explain the truth of what happened to these folks and why there is a legitimate need for the government to communicate with us about what our efforts are.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is probably one of the most important things that we have to fix during this 4 years of President Trump, just because I don't know if we're going to have another chance like this ever again. And I think this is one of the biggest, people don't really understand, I think, the significance of what J6 was for the whole country, because if it didn't affect you, a lot of people think that it has nothing to do with them, but this has something to do with every single person in America, because we watched like 1,500 American citizens have their due process rights violated in the most egregious way that I've ever seen in my entire life in this country. And so if we don't actually get to the bottom of it and hold people accountable, which I think is going to be the harder part, is holding people accountable. I'm afraid that it's going to happen again, because why wouldn't it? If you don't ever hold anybody accountable for doing the things that they do, I feel like they're going to come back and do it more and worse. And we've seen that happen with everything that has to do with President Trump. So I definitely, from the very beginning, thought this was one of the most important, and I mean, sadly, it was tragic, but we were getting back to a better place. But it was one of the most important stories of what happened after the election. So I don't know. I think getting the message, I would like to see congressional hearings, I'll be honest, like real congressional hearings where like the country can hear what happened, and not just from people who are affected, but maybe families and things like that. I don't think people realize the magnitude. The only reason I think I understand a little bit of it is because I've listened to so many stories and I took the time to like really research what happened. And I think that it would be really, really important for the majority of the country to be afforded the opportunity. Not everybody has the time, to people working. I understand, but if done in a setting where they could hear a large volume of stories, and I think congressional hearings should happen. I think what happened was so beyond the pale that I can't imagine why we wouldn't do congressional hearings. But those are just my thoughts. As far as attorneys, that's really not my area of expertise. I do remember McCloskey. He was great during the BLM moment. So.
Yeah, no, thank you, Barbie. I completely agree, of course. Certainly the general principle that if there is not accountability, then corruption and problems will continue to happen and get worse. And we always say that we're resolved to deliver restorative justice through victim recovery and government accountability. So we believe those go hand in hand, and we're definitely pursuing both of those things with these live streams and the collective efforts to continue advancing the cause of restorative justice and continuing to connect different J6ers and platform them. So we're really, really grateful to have you here and highlighting these issues. It's always interesting to hear from someone who isn't a J6er themselves, but has taken the time like you have. And I've been in some of those Twitter spaces and other formats with you, just listening to testimonies and stories of J6ers, of real American citizens that have experienced, I think, really an unprecedented level of government weaponization against American citizens, certainly in modern times, that has shocked the conscience, and that, again, most Americans still just don't actually really know or understand. Yeah, maybe a 5% sliver, but the full reality of it, it's shocking to me, and I've gone through some of the worst of it myself, and it still truly shocks me when I hear stories and when I just contemplate what has actually happened and what the complete and downstream effects of it are. Like you said, not just the victims themselves, but also their families and their communities. Jim, you have done a great story on the efforts specifically of the Tickton-McCloskey attorney group, which of course is a very specific point that we're excited about, along with government accountability and everything else. But in terms of pursuing victim recovery, let us know what your thoughts are and what you've seen in the last couple of weeks.
Well, I think the group of lawyers you put together is very exciting. Some high-profile lawyers. I know both of these men. I know probably Peter more than I do the McCloskeys, even though I'm from St. Louis and I actually don't live far from the McCloskeys. But Peter is just such a man of integrity. He's helped me before out of the blue, and he actually was responsible for getting our reporter inside the White House press room, a permanent pass there. So that was very helpful for us at Gateway Pundit. So I think you have a great team there, and I think as you were talking earlier, John, one of the things that struck me is we all know, because if you've been following Insurrection Barbie or Twitter or Dr. Simone Gold or you, John, or Gateway Pundit, where we've put up literally thousands of articles on January 6th, and we've raised millions of dollars for January 6th families just through their GiveSendGo accounts. We know what happened. We understand the narrative. We understand what a setup it was. But I still think, as Dr. Gold was saying, the American public has really no idea yet what happened. If you looked at those Department of Justice, when they were filing charges against these men and women, these innocent men and women who were basically, some of them had just walked through the Capitol like yourselves, right, and left after several minutes, and they make you sound like you're a career criminal, right, by the way they describe in their write-up in the Department of Justice what you had done. They did that numerous times with people, most of them who were, as we know today, most of them were nonviolent. So I think there's a challenge there. I love the fact that you guys are allowing January 6ers to actually put up their own testimony on your site so that people can actually hear the truth from the person who this happened to. But I think that's going to be a difficult narrative to get over. And I say that as from Gateway Pundit, where I believe we have, after 20 years, we kind of understand the media a little bit and how to break through on different things. I was also thinking that it would be very, very helpful if Congress were to act and do anything, right? Anything, right? And as Insurrection Barbie said, we have a small time frame here to get a lot of things done. They need to start acting. There needs to be investigations, and the DOJ needs to start their own investigation. This has to happen, and I think there really needs to be a push for that, or I think it's going to be much more difficult for you. And really, I think the important thing, like Dr. Simone Gold says, we've been lied to before in this country. I grew up, in the middle of the Midwest in Iowa, where I grew up. And, when I was a kid, this is, decades ago, they taught us to love our country and how America was always on the right side of history and capitalism was good. They actually taught that in school. and they taught about the wars, and we were always we were the good guys.
Right.
And then you find out that maybe not with the JFK. I mean, this is something that's come to my attention just the past few years, because I know Robert Kennedy, and I've spoken with him actually about his thoughts on his father's assassination and the president's assassination, and you start understanding that there's a lot of secrets. And I think the only way to heal is to get the truth out. So I think it's very important, not just for the people who have suffered so much, and I do hope and pray that they get everything that's coming to them, which is, for all of the suffering that you guys went through. I've heard your story, John. I've heard Dr. Simone's story. It's just incredible what you went through, along with hundreds of other people. And I hope you get everything that you deserve, but I hope the American public gets what they deserve, and that is the truth. Because we had the narrative was spun by this legacy media, who is really, they're just swirling around the toilet right now. Everything they say is garbage, and anyway, that's going to be a challenge. I do hope the government gets involved, and I think this is a great effort. I'm really glad you're doing this.
John, let me just jump in on what.
Thank
John,
you, Jim.
I just want to tag what Jim Hoffman said. And Jim, thank you for being here. And I neglected to say how much I personally, as a J6er, appreciate like all the writings you've done over the years and the article that you just did on Tickton and McCloskey. Don't let anybody ever think that I have forgotten about the political. This is political and legal. It's an individual fight for individual 1,600 of us, plus families who are massively harmed. And it's a national fight. The national fight has to take place with Congress's help, or we would just keep trying. That's what's really very exciting about these particular lawyers. We don't have to twist our arms. These are not lawyers who are just going to file papers and just be like, is there a payday at the end of this? That is absolutely not their motive. These are people who have fought for justice for the whole career, really. And yes, congressional hearings on this. I personally, my pet project is to see these judges impeached. Absolutely. I'm a lawyer. I'm offended. I'm viscerally offended. What happened to my medical colleagues during COVID and my legal colleagues, it's offensive. And that's personally something I will be working on from my end is, how can we get judicial hearings, congressional hearings? And I just want to, this is a two-pronged battle that these particular attorneys are savvy in both arenas.
And I
Fantastic.
Absolutely. I want to give a quick shout out now to another one of our J6 warriors, actually several of them. We had Brian Mock on the live stream for wearej6.com, I think a couple of weeks ago. And he's been very active in developing some strategies and activity aimed towards the very things that we're talking about. I'm going to put up his link here, civlib.org, so you can track him and support his efforts. But he's putting together some AI resources to go through transcripts and distill down some of the malicious and illegal behaviors of both DOJ prosecutors and DC judges, and also some pretty serious citizen investigation of what happened with J6 to support congressional investigations and congressional oversight, and keep the pressure on. So please support Brian and what he's doing. Also, Trennis Evans and Condemned USA, another great group that's actually really in the fire right now in terms of advocating for 3 remaining hostages that are still enmeshed in the DOJ situation. I think largely because of DC judges that are, not cooperating and continuing to participate in this egregious judicial activism and overreach that's becoming the existential crisis of the moment. So we'll continue to talk about that issue as well. Let's see, Barbie, I just want to invite you, please jump in and interrupt at any time, because you have really great insight on kind of a lot of things. So please don't feel like you have to wait for me to call on you. I'd love to hear from you on anything that you find interesting. And Jesse, I see your camera and mic are muted, but if you are accessible, we would love to hear from you. There he is. So Jesse is a J6er. He's one of over 1,500 of us. And I simply met Jesse because of We Are J6. It's kind of a cool example of the heart and soul and the mission of this group and of this platform, that we realize we're all out there, but there's distance, and there's pain and trauma, and there's confusion, and there's politics, everything's swirling around, but we need to reach out and connect with each other as human beings, as American citizens. And we need to reach out and connect as a J6 community to help support each other and help advance this cause of, like Jim said, just delivering the truth to the American public, to the American people, and certainly, delivering historical justice, as we've been talking about. So Jesse, thank you for being here. Welcome. And we would love to hear a little bit about who you are as an American, maybe before J6 ever entered the picture, like who's Jesse as an American? And then, of course, you can let us know what happened to you.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate everything We Are J6 is doing for the community. I'd also like to thank Lang and his organization for helping me out when I was going through this troubled times. But I'd like to start off by saying that it's so important that we raise the awareness of what J6 is and what happened, because it was just a trial run. We're the vanguard for what the left would do to opposition in the future. That we can see that the systems they use to railroad us, the lies that they put forth, the judges they have in these places, that it was all just a practice run for what they'll do to everyone if they. We need to remember we only have for 4 years. That the wolf is at the door, and they're ready to spring these traps back on us again if we don't expose them and fight the system and really prevail in the exposing the truth as to what actually happened to us. I'm sure anyone that into what happened to me I'm sure if anybody.
We're having trouble hearing you. The audio's cutting in and out a bit, Jesse.
Oh. Any better?
There's sort of a repetitive
audio on?
Yeah, the audio's on. There's just some noise that's kind of repeating. I'm not sure if it's a cellular issue or what, but
hopefully it's yeah, here maybe if I turn my
do you want to reset and we'll come back to you?
Yeah, I guess we can do that.
John, while Jesse does this, I'm just going to pop in again for 1 minute, just because a couple of people have asked, and I specifically wasn't saying anything political. It's just kind of my nature. I've been trained for the last 4 to 5 years. My lane is really medical freedom. But we do not have any special insight into Trump, Bondi, Patel, right? So I don't want to mislead anybody and say that we have any special insight. We have not been given any special information. But this is an administration whose interests align with ours. We wouldn't be doing all this if we didn't know that. I do believe, this is my opinion and observation, like many of you, Trump has a political base. He has a political mission that he perceives himself to be on, and it would be highly awkward for him to be on the opposite side on this issue. So we are fully expecting to sit down at some point, negotiate with a friendly administration. Of course, though, we do not have any hard information about how any of these people will react to the settlement, but that's why it's important to go with savvy representatives who know the lay of the land. I just wanted to be clear, we don't have inside information, nor would it be proper for us to have inside information. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, as Dr. Gold has mentioned, and Jim was speaking about the attorneys that we are working with, the Tiktik-McCloskey group, and we have other attorneys that we work with as well. I have an excellent appellate attorney that was part of the litigation to win the Fisher case. And so we have a lot of resources and folks that are connected with the J6 issue, legally and otherwise. And the Trump administration, obviously, is in alignment with us. I mean, the pardons alone speak for themselves in that regard. And actually, Attorney Peter Tickton was instrumental in directly connecting with President Trump and his staff to help them be educated and informed about the truth of what really happened with J6. So the more truth and more information that we can help to coordinate and to deliver, the more success we're going to have in our objectives to deliver this idea of restorative justice. Restorative justice, yes, we're talking about certainly financial repair consideration for victims that have been devastated. That is very serious. Most people don't know the first 10% of it. And part of our mission at We Are J6 is to educate and inform people about that component. But also, restorative justice refers to government accountability and national healing in a very nonpartisan sense. So this is not specific to Republicans or the MAGA agenda exactly. Like we say, we are Republicans, Democrats, and independents. We are your neighbors and coworkers. We are fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters. We are J6. That's who we are. We're Americans. So the national healing aspect is really important, but that only comes with truth and education and understanding. So in terms of the Trump administration and political considerations, the truth is what's really necessary. So the more we're able to share these stories and expand people's understanding of what really happened and who these people are, the more oxygen is going to be given into the lungs of the Trump administration in terms of executing what they need to do and coordinating and facilitating with our groups and J6 advocacy, to accomplish the mission. Barbie, just want to thank you again for being here and invite you to jump in at any point. We are really excited to have Jenny Cudd here from Texas, who is just a champion for Americans, certainly related to the J6 issue. She is a J6er herself and has a really special ministry that she and her husband have been building there in Texas to provide real practical needs for J6ers who are struggling, including a roof over their heads and an opportunity to find gainful employment and start really rebuilding their lives. Jenny, thank you so much for being here, and please let us know what's the latest.
Hey, Patriots. Thank you for inviting me on. It's been very exciting the last 3 months. So we have been building these tiny homes out on our property in Central Texas. We're primarily a bed and breakfast and also the most patriotic bar in Texas, the 1776 bar. And now we have our first 2 tiny homes will be done this week. So we've already had several people living with us. We've currently got Don Hazard, Joshua Johnson, and Gary McBride, who has done a lot to help the J6 community with all of the footage and everything like that. And we did have Adam and Beth Villarreal living with us, and then they went to DC to help Brian Mock with the wonderful stuff that they're doing up there, and I'm so proud of them. And so we're able to block off a room or two here and there in order to house people. And I'm so glad that these first 2 tiny houses are almost done. They're absolutely beautiful. They're very rustic, wood and metal everywhere. And I'll be posting pictures and videos and everything soon. And so for those of you that aren't aware of j6roadhome.com, we are currently the only January 6th reentry program in the country. So we have housing, jobs, counseling, pastoral care. Our church here is very supportive. We also have great connections with another local organization out here called Patriot Academy that's run by Rick and Kara Green. And we're working on some big stuff with them. They educate people across the world about the Constitution and the Founding Fathers and offer all of their courses for free. And so it's really exciting to see the
That's
people
awesome.
that have come to live with us. We've had people since just a couple days after we all got pardoned. And we have a very peaceful, quiet place out in the country, and you can see all the stars at night, and it's very healing. And it's awesome to get to watch these guys start to smile, after several weeks, or
Yeah.
start to crack up and joke around with our B&B guest or our bar guest, and get involved and take care of the chickens and the goats and like all the other stuff. I mean, I'm basically Dr. Quinn medicine woman out here. So, but
Yeah,
we're
being
gonna
human again.
yes, we're gonna move guys into these first two tiny homes. Hopefully next week. Of course, they're already with us, but we'll be able to move them into their own home. And then we've also had 2 vehicles donated. We've got tons of community support, and then we will go on to the next phase, which is to raise the funds to build the last 3 tiny homes. So we'll be able to house at least 5 people at a time. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions and can't wait
That's
to show you all the pictures and videos.
That's incredible. Thank you for the update, Jenny. I mean, think about this, you guys. We were just talking a second ago about Brian Mock and his efforts with civliv.org. And he'll be back on We Are J6 pretty soon. But his partner right now, Adam Villarreal, was staying at Jenny's property, right? So this is We Are J6 in action. This is each one of us reaching out to each other and figuring this out and getting through this. It's real, and it's really amazing to see. We're not just talking about this stuff, we're making it happen, and I'm really excited about that. I'm grateful for it. So Jenny, thank you for what you're doing. You've been such a warrior for a long time. This takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of prayer. It does take a lot of money. Money is just a token that represents energy in our efforts. So when people work hard and put in effort, it generates money and other things that we can then use to advance the causes that we believe in. So we do want to encourage people to support j6roadhome.com and all of these various organizations that are helping this mission of restorative justice that we're always talking about. Please register at wearej6.com and encourage everyone you know to do that. We will be releasing some pretty exciting developments on the website pretty soon here, including an alliance page to help share and support and platform a variety of these groups and organizations that are really doing God's work. Jesse, sorry that we lost you earlier, but
Sorry,
Can
hopefully
I
you can
jump
hear me
in real
better
quick
now.
before we move to Jesse?
yeah, go ahead.
We're also having a Memorial Day weekend reunion, January 6th reunion at my place. We had it last year as well. And so we've got, I believe, 20 people coming so far. And so please contact me if you're interested in that. I'm on Twitter and Facebook, and most
When is
everybody
it?
has my cell phone number.
Jenny, will you say it again?
It's Memorial Day weekend.
Memorial Day at the end of May.
Okay. Yes.
Very good. Very exciting. Down there in Texas. I love it. All right. We will
Oh,
check
yes.
that out. Jesse, please go ahead and continue. Let us
Hopefully you
know
can hear me better now.
Yeah.
yes, I can
Okay,
hear
good.
you. It looks like the video froze, but I think we can hear you.
All right. So I'll get back to all right, on the day of January the 6th, because it's so important that everyone understands the immense overreach of the government, and not only on that day, but the idea that they may have, almost definitely had a hand in setting this event up.
Yes.
So, like many others, I attended Trump's speech. He said, go down to the Capitol, have your voices peacefully and patriotically heard. And for anyone who looks up a picture of me on that day, I had a very silly panda bear head on at the time, because I don't know if anybody had been aware of the invasion of Hong Kong by the CCP. They had taken over the country, dismantled their government, dismantled their newspapers, and they were literally castrating protesters in the streets. And it was an absolutely horrific thing that I thought would be something worthy of bringing awareness to fellow patriots that would be attending January the 6th. And
Right.
Thank God I wore that stupid headpiece, because it actually saved my life that day.
Wow.
So I marched to the Capitol with everybody else. We were singing songs and waving flags, and then all of a sudden, to my left, a door opened up, and in front of me, a door opened up, and I heard something like, "Come on in." So I'm thinking, because you only have a split second to think,
Right.
that they're letting us into the Capitol so that we can watch the Electoral College vote. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what a historic thing to be able to see these objections, to be able to see the counting of these votes, and to literally be there when this happens. So I walked in, and at the end of the hallway, there were over a dozen riot-clad officers laying in wait for us when we got inside. So I took a step into a stairwell, took a minute to try to figure out what I was doing. I looked behind me. There were still people coming through the door, so I couldn't just turn around. So I decided to surrender to these officers. So I pulled the head back to see my face, put up my hands, walked up to them, said, I surrender. I said, I'm not trying to trespass. I'm not violent. I said, I've been with this crowd all day. I don't think they want to hurt you. I don't think you want to hurt them. So let's pretend like George Washington is in this hallway with us. And as soon as I said that, I took a baton to the forehead. And I woke up on the ground. They were holding me down, and all dozen of them proceeded to beat me on the ground. So I've got pictures of just how bad I was beaten in that hallway. And then they knelt on my neck, and they put a set of handcuffs on me. So now this wasn't a fight between the crowd and the officers. This was a crowd watching me get beat on the floor. And at this point, now I'm suffering from a concussion. I'm in shock, and the crowd got so upset that they rushed the cops, pushed them off of me, picked me up in handcuffs, and brought me back outside the building, where people picked my cuffs and set me free. So now I'm walking around the terrace with a concussion, and there's videos of me yelling, tell the police you love them, we're all brothers, don't break anything, don't be violent. And in my trial, they called that incitement to violence. So then they formed another line to push everyone off the terrace. And I wound up right on the line where another officer struck and cracked my bottom rib. So I managed to leave the Capitol that day and go home. So I was immediately put under FBI surveillance, and I was under surveillance for 2 years. It got to the point where they reached out to my local sheriff and had him place a tracer on my car. It got to where they dressed up like electrical workers and installed cameras outside of my house so that they could surveil me 24 hours a day. And I was able to get all this through the documents in my case, that they actually did this with the dates and times of them showing up. They followed me everywhere I went, so I'd go to friends' houses and say, hey, I think I'm being followed by the FBI. And, you'd get the whole, oh, no, you're just paranoid. But one thing I learned during those 2 years is I was never paranoid enough. They would go through my mail, they would open it and then reseal it with a giant sticker that said they had read it, and then give it back to me. And it was just the most outrageous thing I'd ever been through. And then after 2 years of surveilling me, they decided that it was time to bring me in. So at 4:26 in the morning, they began launching concussion grenades at my home. So I woke up, the first one I thought was maybe a transformer exploding.
Right.
But then when the second one happened, the third one happened, they got on a megaphone and told me I had to surrender. So I ran to my front door, hands up, to a fully armored SWAT team coming up my front steps with green dots pointed at my chest. They had brought in 2 armored cars, multiple SWAT teams, a dozen regular cars, about 4 unmarked FBI vans, and a helicopter, all to take me in. Someone who they already knew where I was, they already knew what I was doing, they had me on video surveillance, yet they still chose this shock and awe tactic, which I believe may have been even trying to provoke some sort of fight or some sort of excuse for them to shoot me or to call me some sort of extremist, to plaster it all over the media. But luckily for me, that didn't happen. After they handcuffed me and put me in the back of a van, they proceeded to do that to everyone in my house, my family, my girlfriend, my brother. And then after they had their way with my house, they decided to go next door to my grandfather. I had an elderly grandfather that lived next door who was suffering from cancer at the time and could barely walk. And he did not know the difference between a concussion grenade and a bullet. So he was under the impression that the SWAT team had come into my house and killed me. and that he would never see me again. So I had to deal with that awful situation. So later on, I had my trial where they tried to say that I had climbed the scaffolding, where I had never even approached the scaffolding. I was on the complete opposite side of the building. So we had their expert witness testify that it actually was not me in the video. And then they brought in an officer that I supposedly assaulted, who actually said in reviewing the video, it could have been incidental contact. So if we're going by what the law says, it should be beyond a shadow of a doubt. It should be, if there's any ambiguity as to what happened, then they can't move forward with that. I was on a bench trial. So after their witnesses said I wasn't there at the spot they said I was, after the guy they charged me with assaulting said that it probably wasn't an assault, here I am thinking the justice system at least is sane. At least the truth can get out there. At least you have your day in court and that
Right.
things work out. So at 10 o'clock at night, I get a call from the judge the day before he's supposed to give me my verdict. And he tells me that my trial is postponed and to go back to Florida and to come back when he requests me back. So I fly back to Florida. A week later, I get a call, come back in next Friday. I come in, I'm still optimistic. During the trial, it looked like the judge wasn't against me. He was a Trump-appointed judge, but he was also the same judge Steve Bannon had. It was Carl Nichols. So here I am thinking, okay, all the truth came out. They know that I didn't assault anyone. They know that, I wasn't. Judge comes back, says, guilty on all charges. So now here I am in utter disbelief that the system that I've loved my whole life, the system that I believed in, the idea that truth can get out there, everything thrown in my face, which I think is probably one of the most painful things in this whole ordeal, is the fact that you can no longer fully trust this justice system. That
Betrayal of your own
judges, that judges have agendas, that the country we believed in can be weaponized against the very people that it's designed to protect, and your very rights can be turned around and used against you. So I also, during my persecution, had run for county commissioner for my county in Florida. I was way up in the polls. I was up 14 points, guaranteed a win. And then the day before they printed the ballots, they called me into the supervisor's office and told me they were removing me from the ballot. To which I responded to her that she actually could not remove me from the ballot, that Florida law says that only a judge can remove you. So she looked me square in the face and said, I don't care. So then I contacted an election lawyer, and we had a group chat where she said, I can't put him on. There are powerful people preventing me from doing it. So now we have an elected official who's being pressured into breaking the law to remove a duly qualified candidate from a ballot.
Wow.
So my life has just been one fight after another. I'm still fighting the ballot case in court. Thank God my J6 case is over, but it's never over until everyone knows the situation we've been through, where everyone can see the danger inherent in allowing the system to be weaponized against the American people. And that's why it's so important that J6 truth gets out, that J6 situations, that we can see what happened to these patriotic people who in most cases did absolutely nothing wrong.
Right.
Yet they were still treated like domestic terrorists. While at the same time, we have people now blowing up Tesla dealerships. We have them openly threatening politicians, and yet nothing happens to them. But here we are, we get to show up one day, wave some flags, and then all of a sudden there's 1,500 people in jail with no proper due process.
Right.
And this sort of terrible situation that we found ourselves in needs to be a learning experience for the American people. It needs to be something that we show, something that we can bring up and say, this is what happens if we're not vigilant, which is why everyone needs to get in this fight. Not just the J6ers, not just the families, not just the people affected, because we are all affected, which is why everyone needs to stand up, which is why we need to make this public. We need those hearings. We need that restorative justice. We need these people to not only be made whole, but to be shown the truth of what happened that day. So, I mean,
Wow.
I've tried to get out there and spread this message as much as I can, which is why I appreciate organizations like this that are raising our voices up, that are showing the people the truth, and why it's so important to never give this fight up. So I'd like to thank you once again for having me on here.
Yeah, Jesse, that was incredibly powerful. That was just shocking, actually. I said at the beginning that I've gone through some of the worst of this myself, and I have. And yet, every time I hear another one of these stories, I'm blown away. I hear a story like yours, Jesse, and I think this must be the outlier. This must be like the worst of the worst. But they're all terrible. Each time I hear another one, I think there's 1,500 roughly cases, and most of them are ridiculous like this. It's just, you run out of descriptors. Hyperbole doesn't exist anymore. It's just insane. It's terrible. Dr. Gold, Jim, please, jump in with reaction to that. I do want to get to the persecution testimonial video that we have, which is also going to be really exciting. But Jesse's story is so powerful. And Jesse, your summary of why it's important that we continue this fight, why it's essential for everyone to be a part of this, if you know a J6er or not. It's so true. It was profound and eloquent. Thank you for saying that. It's so true. And it is the heart and soul of wearej6.com and what we're trying to do here. So thank you. We'll certainly have you back, but please know that we want to empower you and encourage you in your fight and in your mission. We want to urge you to share with everyone you can to join the We Are J6 effort, so we can continue to expand the family and expand the effort and help to platform these people, give them voices, and achieve the awareness and the education that the public desperately needs to have.
Jesse, and again, just to remind people, because we are just a strategic alliance of people with a similar interests. There's no other motive at all. Jesse, a lot of people have commented on your story, and I just want to make sure they know how to reach you. If you would just repeat that, how they can find you on Twitter or X.
I actually don't really have social media. I've got a Twitter that was for my campaign account that I'm still connected to. It's Vote Jesse or Vote Jesse 24 on X. And from that, there's really not much. I'm not on. I try to avoid social media.
It does have its downsides. But Jesse, I thought your story about running for commissioner was very interesting and important. Shocking that there would have been that kind of corruption and illegality and persecution against a duly, like you said, a duly authorized citizen running for office. So I hope that you'll continue that fight and continue to share details, because we need to know about that. The public needs to know about that.
I'm in the appellate court 5th district right now, and I've also submitted back to the Supreme Court of Florida for the case, because my local judge, I think, was just as corrupt as everyone else.
Yeah.
And so willing to not give me a hearing. Like, she just refused to even give a hearing or allow me to explain it. And then for 6 months, she twiddled her thumbs. So I reached out to the Supreme Court of Florida, who said they would intervene once there was a verdict. And then I reached out to the 5th district. So now I'm back there in the appellate court right now.
That's great.
And then I'll run in 26 regardless. So if it's for the seat that I ran for or a different one, he needs to give this fight up.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that too. I definitely think that we need a lot more J6 patriots stepping up to the stage and to the front lines of the political battles in various elected positions and so forth. So I think that's really important. I am going to go ahead and launch this video if you guys are all ready. This is the latest in our persecution testimonial series. And just to kind of preface you guys, anyone that's watching and participating here, We have sent weekly emails for a few weeks now. We'll continue to send them, not only on general updates, but specifically with the instructions for any J6er that wants to share their story. And we hope all of you will. We want to have 1,500 of these videos. You'll see why. They're really powerful and really effective, I think, at helping to kind of break the dam of the false narrative and get these stories out where people can really start to absorb them and share them, and we'll start to win that battle. So here is the latest, and let us know what you think.
The judge literally begged the cop to come in and testify against me. I had a newborn, a 2-month newborn. Immediately, my family goes into financial struggles. 2.5 years I was in prison. I come home and I don't even know my own son. I hate you because you stand for what this country was built on. I am James Molt from Brockport, New York. I went to the January 6th Stop the Steal rally to protest the certification of the 2020 election. I did not commit any violence or vandalism on January 6th. I went to peacefully protest, but while we were peacefully protesting, the police violently attacked us unprovoked and changed my life. I was charged with 6 felonies. I was coerced into a false guilty plea. I was pled guilty to a assault charge with a deadly weapon, which was pepper spray, and the can of pepper spray that I used never went off. I was sentenced to 44 months in prison. I was also given a $2,000 fine for damages I did not do, and I was also given 3 years probation, and it's all based on lies. What's happened to me because of January 6th and what they did to me and my family changed my life forever. Right off the bat, I was never given a fair anything. I was never given bond. I didn't hurt a single person. Can of pepper spray I pointed at a cop never went off, yet I was charged with assault with a deadly weapon. The judge literally begged the cop to come in and testify against me. The cop never showed up. My family was forced to move from North Carolina, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, all the way back to New York without me. I had a newborn, a 2-month newborn. I had a 3-year-old daughter at the time. I wasn't there to help. They didn't allow me to get a chance. Immediately, my family goes into financial struggles because our savings are wiped out, because I can't provide, and my wife, she was a stay-at-home mom, can't be a stay-at-home mom anymore. She has to go and work full time. 2 years, 2.5 years I was in prison. I come home and I don't even know my own son. It's life-changing. Being labeled a terrorist when you've served your country for 8 years, deployed for a whole year of your life, and you find out that, the country that you loved is filled with corrupt bureaucrats and evil that hate you because you stand for what this country was built on. You want to protect those rights. So it took a lot for me. Since January 6th, my family has been pushing forward. We're doing better, but it definitely put us in a tough spot. I lost 2.5 years of my life. I watched my son and daughter grow older through a phone, and it took so much more from me than I ever thought it could have. We need retribution and restitution for what happened to us. We were unjustly prosecuted, and they used us in their games. And if we don't have any retribution and restitution for everything that's happened, it's just not right. I am James Molt, and I am a J6 defendant. I am one of thousands harmed by this weaponized government. We are your American brothers and sisters, and we are hurting. We are J6.
The American people need to see these stories of political persecution. Please share them widely and join us at wearej6.com to help deliver restorative justice through victim recovery and government accountability.
May I pop in? There's a bit of an echo. Okay. That's, I think, the second video that we've shown on this setting. Is there still an echo? John and Jim? No, you're not hearing. Okay. You can see our intent is to put very emotionally compelling stories out in front of the American people. That's how you change the narrative. If people don't know John's background, John was a Hollywood actor kind of guy, and he well understands the power of, emotionally connecting with the audience. I want to, that was a, Brian, was his name Brian? Or the person we just saw? I'm so sorry. James was giving a bit of an overview. That's one way to approach it. Another way to approach it is to pick one thing that happened to you that's just very relatable. I can imagine that if James had just spoken, for example, of him not watching his child grow up, like just as a single vignette, or don't feel you have to summarize everything because 5 minutes is a short time. You can see that we put a lot of work into editing these, but I've experienced that if people pick one episode that happened to them, in my case, for example, it might be the FBI SWAT team arrest that broke down the door, heart pounding, heart stopping. I couldn't begin to summarize in 5 minutes what I've gone through. Nobody can on this call. So you feel free to take a short vignette that you believe is emotionally relatable to any other normal human being. This is how we're going to change people's minds and eventually, God willing, change Congress and force the administration to see us and do what's right. And thank you, John, for the work that you've been doing behind the scenes on the editing of these videos.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Gold. Just want to encourage folks. Let me see if I can figure out why that's doing that. I'm not sure. We really want to encourage everybody to continue to join this effort. So again, please continue to repost and retweet the live stream and the content that's coming from the channel. We are J6 Alliance on X. And of course, register at wearej6.com. That's really critical. Literally every single human that supports liberty and justice for all can register as an advocate at wearej6.com. And that's going to immensely help us to amplify the message, share the stories, and get the truth out there. There's no better way to share the truth than directly from the people that experienced it. So James, this week in that video was powerful. Jesse, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story here. We'd love to have you put a video summary together as well. Like I said, we'll continue to send out those weekly emails, just reminding people and giving them the instructions for how to record those stories, so that we can continue to share them at the using the wearej6.com platform, as you've seen. Jim, I just want to thank you again for being here and for your fearless, intrepid support. Do you have any thoughts and reaction to the video, and just give us your take on kind of what you're seeing from these various people as they one by one, find the space and the support to step up and share their story.
I've heard your story, John, and I've heard Dr. Gold's story, and now I heard James, and I've heard hundreds of others, and I think that is the best way to spread the message. It just rips at your heart to hear what he's talking about, like you said, with his not being able to see his kids or watching them grow up on a phone, for 2.5 years for something that he was completely innocent of. So I really pray that we, I hope they find out actually who was behind this this effort um, uh, to arrest all of these Republicans and Trump supporters and set us all up, because there's something there. I hope they find that out, and we need to continue to push for that. The American public needs to understand what happened. It wasn't a bunch of thugs who are Trump supporters who are, destroying the U.S. Capitol. That never happened, as you guys have testified, and I've talked to both of you. They weren't ripping down statues. They weren't burning hallways. They weren't, tearing apart paintings. This was a very peaceful protest. You guys, and we've seen you on video. James, his story is just heart-wrenching, and it's there's 1,000 others like theirs. But we do need to find out who actually was behind this effort. We're starting to get a clearer picture as time goes on, and I'm just going to throw this out there, and this is not to be political at all, but it's just the fact that there were some players like Nancy Pelosi not calling in the National Guard was a huge mistake, and I truly believe that this
not a mistake.
This wouldn't, yeah, exactly. This wouldn't have happened if there was National Guard there to protect the U.S. Capitol. I think a lot of us would agree on that. Anyway, but these stories are just very powerful. I think you guys are doing a great thing for the country and for these families who've lost so much, and for yourselves. So thank you for all your effort on this.
Amazing. Thank you, Jim. And we're grateful for the work of the Gateway Pundit and all those reporters that continue to battle in the public space and seek and deliver truth. We will definitely continue that effort here at wearej6.com. Really encourage you guys to register and share the word. And like I said, please share and encourage anyone that you know who is a J6 patriot, a J6 former defendant. They need your encouragement. They need your support, just to know that there is a family and a support system to allow them to process through healing, deal with trauma, and begin to find their voices and speak again. Because a lot of them are literally in hiding. And some of them have been in various forms of hiding for years now. And there's still a process and a lot of pain to deal with. So this community is so critical along those lines. And so if you have any ability to reach out to a J6er, give them encouragement, help them to connect with wearej6.com so that they can find the support, that they can share their story, and we can bring them into the family. We want to get more and more of these stories made and shared, and accelerate the pace, because there are many of them, but we need a lot of energy behind this effort right now and in these coming weeks to advance the causes of restorative justice, whether it's the legal issues we've been talking about and restitution, or whether it's serious government accountability, starting with investigations and determining the truth of what happened, and then of course consequences and accountability. So this country is all about we the people. That is the point of democratic governance and constitutional governance, and it requires each and every one of us as citizens to fulfill our duty and participate in the process. So we encourage you to think along those lines and join the effort. wearej6.com. Hopefully that's pretty easy. Also, just stay tuned to our social media and know that we've got some exciting developments on the website that are going to come out too, just to continue to broaden the platform and support efforts of a lot of other patriots that are doing their part, each and everyone as individuals. So thank you guys so much for being here. We will see you again next Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And we are going to close out the live stream here with a video that we have displayed a few weeks ago, another J6 persecution testimonial. So you can enjoy that as well. And please share them. You'll be seeing them come through the social media and the website very soon. And we'll see you all next week. God bless you.
We're simple people. We were nonviolent. Having our home raided by FBI, pointing AR-15s at my daughter early in the morning, 6 hours in solitary confinement. This is an event that will forever change us. My name is Scott Christensen, and I'm from Puyallup, Washington. On December 6, 2021, my wife and I took a vacation to Washington, D.C., which was a Christmas gift to my wife. We went to enjoy the Stop the Steal rally in the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. to hear President Donald Trump give a speech. After President Trump gave his speech, my wife and I peacefully joined others on the east side of the Capitol building, in which we joined in the singing of the national anthem, chanting USA, and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. As the crowd grew bigger and bigger, we were forced to have to go into the Capitol building. There was no way out. We squeezed through the East Memorial doors and entered, nonviolent, non-destructive, non-abusive. We were just there to take part. On December 7th, 2022, our home was raided by 20 plus FBI and US Marshals. We were brought up on 4 charges. We were coerced to have to plead guilty to picketing, parading, and demonstrating inside of a Capitol building, in which we felt like we did none of the above. In the process of everything, they placed us on a terror watch list. We were then sentenced with 30 days home confinement, 60 hours of community service, 36 months of probation, and $1,020 of restitution to damages that were done to the Capitol of which we did not commit. We were nonviolent. We served our punishment fully. Along with everything else, the court of public opinion was the most devastating. Local, national, and social media targeted us, calling us insurrectionists, calling us terrorists, and becoming an enemy of the state and an enemy of the people. We are not those people. We're simple people. Having our home raided by FBI, US Marshals, pointing AR-15s at my daughter early in the morning, dragging us out of the house and publicly arresting us in front of our community, putting us in handcuffs and leg shackles, dragging us for us to have to sit for 6 hours in solitary confinement in the local courthouse. This is an event that will forever change us. The psychological, physical, emotional toll that is taken not just on we, but our family as well. Our daughter still has nightmares of what happened that day when we were arrested. No good American person should ever go through this over a misdemeanor, a petty misdemeanor. It's the first time in FBI history that they have ever pursued Americans over walking through a Capitol taking pictures. And yet we were treated as if we were drug cartel, human traffickers. Our punishment will last all of our days. We will always wear this scarlet letter from what we experienced, the treatment that we got. The weaponized Department of Justice from Merrick Garland to Matthew Graves must be held accountable. Financially, as well as demoting, never again allowing these tyrants to have the power that they have to focus and target good American citizens who simply was there to let our voices be heard peacefully and patriotically. Our lives have been changed forever. We will always have the thought in the back of our mind that whatever goes bump in the night, is it them again? Is it these stormtroopers? Did we mistakenly do something wrong that we didn't know is breaking the law? This type of weaponized government can and will go after its political opponents if we, the people, give them the power. There must be accountability so that this never happens again to a law-abiding citizen of the United States. We own the mistakes we made. But again, it can never happen with a severity like this. I'm Scott Christensen, and I'm a January 6th defendant. I'm one of thousands of people whose lives have been destroyed by a weaponized government from the Department of Justice and the FBI. We are your American brothers and sisters. and we are hurting. We are J6. Please help us deliver restorative justice.
The American people need to see these stories of political persecution. Please share them widely and join us at wearej6.com to help deliver restorative justice through victim recovery and government accountability.